Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel, Real Talk Recovery, where we talk about recovery from addiction and I share my life with you. Before we get into this video, if y'all don't mind, please give this video a thumbs up. It really does help me out a lot. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the notification bell. That way you will be made aware of every single time I go live. For those of you guys that are new to my channel, I go live every single night at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, and we have recovery support groups. So I hope you guys will come hang out with me tonight at 7 p.m. And also, leave me a comment down below and share with me, what was your hustle? When you were getting high, how did you make a way when you didn't have one? Because that's what today's video is about. So, for those of you guys that might not have known, I made 2 videos this week, and they were about different substances. One was, what was crystal methamphetamine like? And I'll link that one in the cards to let y'all know. If you haven't gone and watched it, you can go watch it. And the other one was, what are opiates like? And I'll link that one also, so go check them out. And I was sharing with you guys my personal experience on those drugs, okay? Now, disclaimer, I'm not trying to glorify addiction. I'm not trying to glorify my criminal activities. This is my past, but my past is my greatest asset. And this is how I help others, is by sharing my experience. So I hope you understand, and I hope you enjoy this video. So how did I make money? Now, if any of you guys don't understand the disease of addiction, I'm going to explain something to you. The disease of addiction is very cunning. It's very sneaky. And when it starts out, you start out and everything's under control. It's very progressive. It gets worse as time goes on. Okay, so at the beginning of my addiction, straight out of high school, I was working 2 jobs. I worked for Sonic and I worked for JCPenney. And I was getting high and nobody could tell. I was probably not doing as much as I did at the end of my addiction because my tolerance wasn't high. So I was able to go and work high on methamphetamine, you know, high off Xanax, high off methadone, high off, you know, oxy, and nobody could tell because I wasn't out of my mind, okay? But that's the progression of the disease. And this video is going to show you guys exactly how addiction gets worse, never better. So I hope you'll pay attention to that, okay? So, like I said, I was working for JCPenney. I was doing really good. I was making good money. And I ended up losing that job because of my addiction. I was having people that were coming to my job that were, they were dope cooks. They were methamphetamine cooks, and they wanted shoes. So I was giving them free shoes. I was giving them their girlfriend's free makeup. And I ended up getting caught doing that, and I got fired, you guys. So that was my first job I lost to my addiction. And it was also my first job out of high school. You know, my official first job was Sonic. So there we go. JCPenney, down. Knocked that one off the list. Lost to my addiction. After that, I went and got a job working for a company called Shoe Carnival. At Shoe Carnival, I worked my way up the ranks quickly, like I always do. One thing that y'all need to understand is that I was raised up to hustle. I was raised up that you don't get nothing. You don't get something for nothing. So you got to work your ass off to get to where you want to go. Just like I am here on my YouTube channel, that's how I am in real life with my jobs. I work my ass off. I do it to the extreme. So when I got that job at Shoe Carnival, I was doing methamphetamine and taking Xanaxes and eating pills, opiates, and I would do meth and stay up all night long, go into my job, do another line, and then work my ass off. So I got promoted to floor supervisor. Well, this is another job that I didn't get fired from it. I actually left this job, but I would have gotten fired if I had stayed there. My boss was actually running shoes out of the back. So he was selling shoes to people out of the back of the store and not ringing them up. So he had his own little hustle. And while he was back there selling shoes out the back door, I was on the register giving shoes away to the dope cooks. And so, again, my addiction affected me in this position, but I was still able to work and nobody could really tell, right? So after that job, I left that job because I got a new job working for the state of Arkansas. And this is a pivotal moment for me in my addiction, okay? So you guys need to kind of, listen up. I was about 21, okay? So working for the state, I was working with highly confidential information. I was doing people's taxes. I was doing their insurance. I was doing their driver's license, their state IDs. I was dealing with DWIs. I was dealing with assessments and property tax. I mean, this was a lot of responsibility, okay? I worked at this job for 5.5, 6 years, okay? While I was at this job, I started dating LD, okay? Dating LD was a shit show. This guy was very abusive to me, and I got, one thing that you'll notice throughout my life is that my addiction gets worse when I'm in a stressful situation, okay? So at this time, I was in a very abusive relationship, and so my addiction was out of control. At this time, I started abusing opiates and Xanaxes heavy. I was eating the 40 milligram methadone wafers every single day. I was on about 130 milligrams of those methadone wafers every single day. I was going into my work, and I was so high that I was falling asleep at my computer or nodding out at my computer. Now, when I got this job, you guys, just like all my other jobs, I worked my ass off. I was the quickest person to process people through the line, so they put me on the express line. So I constantly was doing driver's license IDs really, really quickly. I ended up getting fired from this job directly because of my addiction. Okay, I was doing illegal things at my job, and I ended up getting caught, and they ended up firing me. They had me step down. They actually had me resign, and that's how that worked out. But what I was doing was directly related to my addiction. And again, I was doing this because it helped me to fuel my addiction. I was making money to pay for my drugs, because not only was I paying for my own drugs now, but I was also paying for LDs. After I lost my job at the revenue office, like I said, I had been there for 5.5 years. LD and I broke up. He left me, and I went downhill from there. I lost my shit. I lost my job at Sonic. I lost my job at the revenue office, and I started injecting methamphetamine. I started eating ecstasy pills every single day. Like, when I tell you guys this, like, I'm being serious. Like, I was so out of control. Okay, the only way I had to pay for any of this was I was working a little rinky-dink job at a gas station. Okay, I was basically using my girlish appeal. I was hooking up with my drug dealers. I was cleaning my drug dealer's house. I could do that sometimes, and he would give me free dope. But everything that I made from my job at the gas station went to drugs. Now, I had paid my car off while I was working at the revenue office, so that was one thing that I didn't have to worry about, okay? All I had was my insurance. And one thing that I was always really good about doing was making sure that I gave my dad enough money each month to pay my insurance, all right? And he stayed on my ass. At this time, I had accumulated a lot of credit cards, so I was living off these credit cards. I was charging stuff to give to the dope man to get dope. I was paying for places to stay with a credit card. I was buying everything on credit, you guys. And so this also added a new level of stress onto my life in my addiction. So my addiction just got worse and worse and worse and worse, because now I can't pay these credit card bills. So I started jumping ship. I started just stop paying them. I couldn't keep up with it anymore. And it got so bad that these creditors were calling my parents' house every single day. And so I finally filed bankruptcy because it was so much I couldn't pay it back. It was $60,000 in credit card debt. So now we're at the point where I'm injecting methamphetamine, and I get arrested for a Class C felony, which is possession of a controlled substance. I was placed on state probation for 3 years. Okay, my first year on probation, I failed every single drug test. And she sent me to treatment one time. I came out of treatment, and I relapsed. Okay, all this is I'm working at the gas station, and I got another job working at Sonic as a car hop. okay? So Sonic was always like something I could fall back on because they loved me there and I was good at it. So I was making tips, okay? Well, I ended up getting arrested and going to prison, okay, because of the fact that I couldn't pass my drug screens. All right, so I ended up going to prison, and I stayed in prison for about a year, give or take. I think it might have been maybe 11 months, but it was almost a whole year. I was there, got out, came home, and moved here to Little Rock. And this is where I started injecting oxys, okay? I was living in a halfway house, and I got a job working for Kroger. At this time, I was staying sober. I was the assistant manager of the deli in Kroger, and I was making great money. About 7 months into my employment at Kroger, I relapsed. And I went back out. And I stayed back out until 2015 when I got sober. Now, I started working for Kroger in late 2009, early 2010. I kept that job till 2013. Kroger actually helped me go to treatment one time because I was struggling so much and they were noticing that I was high. It was starting to become a problem. I was starting to come into my job to where I was nodding out and I was fucked up on Xanax, I was fucked up on oxys, and they knew it. But I'm telling you guys, like, even though I was fucked up, I came to work. And that's one thing that I've always done, is I've always showed up, even when I probably shouldn't have. And that's how I ended up losing my job working for Kroger. I met Neil in 2012, and it was the early part of 2013. And I had eaten like 7 bars that morning because I had stayed up all night tweaking. And I went into work high on 7 bars, and my boss walked up to me and told me I needed to take a drug screen. And he drove me to the place, and then when we got there, I refused to take it. Hell no, I won't go. So that's when they ended up terminating me. They terminated me. Neil came and got me, okay? Now, they were offering me to go to treatment, but at that time, you guys, I didn't want to go. I had just met Neil. I thought that we could save each other, okay? And this was another downward spiral, okay? So now me and Neil are addicted together. Now, while I was with my husband, it started to get a lot harder for me to find employment and be able to hold on to it, because I couldn't stop getting high. Because now that I had my husband, he had so many methadones, you guys. Like, he was prescribed 365 methadone a month. So we had that, plus we would sell some, and then we would get other drugs. So, and then he had a job, and he was working just like I was working, and so he had money. So we were living, paycheck to paycheck, spending our money all on drugs, okay? Now, I ended up getting a job for about 6 months at a restaurant called Cajun's, and it was the best. I loved that place, you guys. And I made such good money there. I was making like $500 a night on the weekends. And so here I am again. Like, I'm making so much cash so I could get so much drugs. And so all the way through my addiction, even though I would get fired from the jobs, I would always find a new job. Now, once I got pregnant with my son, I got a job working at Sonic here in Little Rock. I worked at Sonic until I was 7 months pregnant with my son, and then I stopped working. And the way that I got high, well, I had no job, was my husband had a job, and I was hustling. Now, this is not something I'm proud of, but I was a straight up thief. I could go into a store and lift so much stuff. And I've gotten caught a couple times, but for the most part, what I was stealing was such high value. I was stealing like $200 and $300 purses at a time, and I would steal like 3 or 4 of them. And so I could take those purses and trade those to the dope man's old lady. And so I had a whole hustle going on, and that was another way that I helped make money for my addiction. Okay, now that I had this guy and my husband, I can't just like hook up with dudes now to get drugs. So what I started to do is I started to meet men that were older, that just wanted my attention. And I would go over to their house. Neil would go with me, drop me off, and I would make $100 just hanging out, folding this little old man's laundry and talking. Okay, but where there's a will, there's a way. Okay, I found a way I don't think there was ever a time where I couldn't figure out a way to get money. Now, that's how I stayed high. That's how I got money. I worked through my addiction. 90% of my addiction, I was working. Okay, the other 10% is where I got pregnant. I got with my husband, and then, but now, I'm back at it again, working my ass off. That's what I do. Like, I'm not somebody who's lazy. I'm not somebody who just lays around and expects for a man or somebody to take care of me. And when I was in my addiction, I wasn't that way either. I made a way. So that's why when I tell you guys, like, I know that you can get sober and stay sober, because if you can make a way like I did to get high, then you can make a way to stay sober. You can put that effort in just like you put in the effort getting fucked up. So that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. I hope that kind of explains a little bit to any of you guys that were confused. I'm not independently wealthy. I've never had a lot of money. And so it was always because I worked my motherfucking ass off. So I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in about 30 minutes for our meeting at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Bye. Leave me a comment. Tell me, guys, how y'all hustled. Tell me what you did to get dope. I want to hear from you. So leave me a comment. Love y'all.